It's just Chris Bumbrae, JoBlo.com.
Chris, there is not a Kit Kat bar and numerous cookies that you can't see just out of view. I just want to put that out there.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So, okay, well, let me start with after quite a while away from the franchise, what was it about Spiral that made you want to jump back in? I mean, I figure it's the amazing cast had something to do with it, but
that's it. It's Chris Rock. I mean, you know, I did 3 Saw films back to back to back, and I felt like I had done what I needed to, and I didn't want to overstay my welcome. So for me, it was the best to walk away on top. But then, you know, when you find out that Chris Rock wants to make a Saw film, that is the top of the top of the top. And I was like, I can't let someone else do that. Then I will not be the guy who ended on top. So I had to jump back on the minute that I met with Chris.
It's funny though, in the rankings, it seems that a lot of people really will put Saw 2 at the top of the list. Max Minghella actually told me earlier that he thought that Saw 2 was the best of the series. And I concur, actually. I think it was really good. One of the things that I loved about this movie though, as opposed to some of the other Saw movies, is that you shot in this beautiful kind of scope aspect ratio, right? And it had these really bold colors, which I thought were great. Reminded me a bit of what you did with the Devil's Carnival, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, you know, I've had a huge influence of a cinematographer I worked with back in the days of Repo named Joseph White. And he introduced me to this color palette, which is a Storaro gel pattern. Storaro is a DP, did Dick Tracy.
Yeah, sure.
If you go back and look at Dick Tracy, you'll notice a lot of the color palettes that I use, literally, I've just stolen from that movie. The harsh, hyper-realistic colors. Coming into Spiral, I wanted to change a lot of the things from the previous entries. You know, Jigsaw, when it came out, I saw it in a theater and I was like, this isn't a Saw movie. It was too pretty. It was too crystal clean. It was too polished. And then some of the other Saw films just didn't have that grime that I wanted them to. So I said, how do we make this look good, yet still feel like a Saw movie? So we went with this new DP, Jordan Oram. And one of the first things that I wanted to do was to make it feel hot. I wanted it to always feel like the sun was beating down and everyone was hot. So that went with sweat stains, you know, sweat everywhere on the bodies, always sunlight coming in. I mean, blowing out huge windows.
That was really
cool. And I think that's just a cool look.
Yeah.
You know, Spike Lee's done it a bunch, and I'm a huge fan of his movies, but I just love how heat can be a character in films. To just help the nervousness and the anxiety these characters are going through.
I also thought it was one of Chris Rock's best movie performances ever. I really loved him recently on Fargo, but I thought that he was great in this movie, and I think it's a real kind of change of pace role for him. And I think people are going to look at him a little bit differently after it comes out.
Yeah, you know, I've always been a fan of his comedy, and you know, I've seen all of his movies from New Jack City to Beverly Hills Ninja. And I think that he is a very, very diverse actor. In what he can do. And he actually, a funny moment that I've told in another story, so I apologize for regurgitating, but it just makes me happy. We were shooting a scene in the police station. It was a scene that basically he was kind of nervous about shooting because it was his first really emotional piece in the film. And it was when he finds out that he's not getting the case for Boz.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Boz was my friend. We went to games. We shared meals. It was this whole great scene. And at the very end, like the scene used to go on like a minute and a half longer. We cut a lot of it down. Everyone in the set clapped. I mean, everyone started clapping. And Chris looks at camera and goes, lest none of you forget I was in Pootie Tang. What I'm saying is I have range. And I was just like, dude, this guy's awesome. So I had such a great time working with him.
Have you, I know that when the original Saw series was being made, there was sometimes some struggles with the MPAA. Spiral felt like it was the most gruesome of the series so far. And I was just wondering if you had any problems with that, because some of the stuff in that movie.
Yes, this was the biggest MPA nightmare that I've ever had on any movie.
Oh, interesting.
And I was kind of surprised because as time has passed, more and more horrific films have come out, even on TV, whether you're watching Hannibal on TV or any of these other horror shows, they pushed the envelope. So I was like, this is going to be fine. Oh no, it was not fine. I think we got the NC-17 like 11 times. I whatever the most amount you can submit, before they stop fucking around and say, submit it again, you get the NC-17, you have to wait 6 months.
Oh, really?
So,
That happens? Oh my God.
yeah, they do. There's only a certain amount of times you can submit before you have to wait and go to the back of the queue. So the way that it happens with MPA is, let's say I get an NC-17, I can submit again right away and again. And then until we get the R, but at a certain number, you go to the back of the line and they start watching the other movies.
Wow.
So I hit the most amount you can do. They had a really big problem with the finger trap scene. In the finger trap, originally in the edit, my first edit, you saw every finger break, compound fractures pop out. So I get really sad when I look at it now because I know what we had. So maybe someday when they re-release the VHS Laserdisc copy of Spiral, they'll put those on there.
Well, I mean, changing tracks a little bit, you know, people have always said that the great thing about horror is that it's always very evocative of the society that it depicts. And I mean, I think Spiral was incredibly of its time, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because thematically it feels a spectacularly well-timed movie because it really does relate to a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you can never plan that. We shot it 2 years ago, sat on it for a year. It took a year to edit and everything. But I think that maybe that's something that says something about where we are in the world, because it was timely then too. 2 years ago, it was still happening. Yeah. So, you know, it's just gotten more in the spotlight, I think, now. I don't think any of us set out to make a political film. However, you know, I think that I always try to keep politics outside of whatever art. And I'm very opinionated on shit. But we try to keep it out. What we did try to do, though, is in the previous Saw works, the police were always a central character, but they were always the B storyline. Yeah. You know, it was the B. We wanted to swap that and make it the A storyline this time. And one of the things that was important to me is that if we were going to villainize the police and make them the corrupt officers, then the hero had to also come from the same department. So in the movie, while, you know, police are the focus of the corruption and the unjust, you know, slayings, it was important that the hero also be a police officer as well. But thus the Zeke Banks character, who is the hero in this.
And how was it working with Samuel L. Jackson? That must have been kind of a thrill because he's great.
I mean, Sam Jackson is Sam Jackson. He is bigger and then a personality than I can ever explain in an interview. He walks in and
larger than life.
He is. And I didn't see Sam Jackson. I saw Jules from Pulp Fiction. I saw, you know, his character in Coming to America. I saw True Romance. I saw Black Snake Moan. I saw, you know, all of these, Long Kiss Goodnight. I saw every badass character he's ever played. I saw Die Hard. I saw all of this. So, you know, it was a surreal experience for me working with him and having him do things that I asked him to do. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is like the first time that I felt like, you know, when you're a kid and you got those action figures and you kind of play with them on your floor and you do whatever. That was the first time I ever felt, because I'm like, this is the guy that I've seen on every action movie, every fucking, you know, thing. And now I'm telling him what to do. And it was an insane experience. It still feels surreal even now looking back on it.
I really love his voicemail in the movie. It's just leave a message. I feel like
you know what's funny? You know what's so funny about that is I think that I walked up to him, if I remember the story correctly. Like I said, he just scares me. He's a scary guy. Nice as hell. Yeah. But he just scares me. I remember I walked up to him and I was like, can I get a voicemail from you? And he looks at me like this, like I wanted him to record my voicemail on my phone. I was like, no, for the movie. And he snatches my phone. He goes, leave a message. And then he throws it back to me. And that's literally what made the movie, was me just walking up to him sheepishly while we were shooting, asking him to do that.
Oh, it's kind of perfect. But then I want to go into, because the fact is it's called Spiral, not Saw. And it is a Saw movie, but it isn't a Saw movie. And I just want to know if you could talk about that a little bit, because it does have a continuation, but yeah.
Yeah. So the way that I was kind of sold on it, what I like about it is it's not a reboot. It's not a sequel. It's not a reimagination. It is a separate storyline that exists in the universe of Saw. So Saw was real. Jigsaw, John Kramer was real. Dr. Gordon, all of those characters all existed, but this is a different story in a different part of town that's not necessarily connected to that. Now, for a fan who likes the Saw franchise, there are 1,000 Easter eggs you can look for and find. that Jigsaw is spoken about in the movie. Other characters are spoken about in the movie. But what is, I think to me, it's good. None of that matters. You don't need to know anything about Saw 1 to 8 to come in and enjoy this movie. But if you've seen Saw 1 through 8, you're going to appreciate this movie on a different level. So hopefully if this works, you'll see a split off. You'll have Spiral 2 and you might have the true Saw 9, because this is not Saw 9. It's the 9th installment of a Saw movie, but it's not Saw 9. So, there is a world in which a TV show exists, Spiral 2 exists, and Saw 9 exists, all playing at the same time.
So do you think that this could potentially launch its own series and something kind of distinctly different from Saw?
I mean, listen, that's a knock on wood. Ask the fan, ask the movie gods that. I think that all of us have lofty goals for what we want this to be. We all talked about, in a perfect world, what the big overreaching story would be, like a TV show. You would do that. You just like, okay, where does this go? But for that to happen, the first one has to work. And if the first one works, then I think the sky's the limit. We got to get this one off the ground.
Is this also the first Saw movie to have an IMAX release? Because it was, because I think that's kind of neat. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, again, it's unfortunate of how we got the IMAX release is obviously through COVID. We were supposed to come out last year. The world hit the brakes. And now that we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, and a lot of movies push, that opens up a lot of screens, and that opens up IMAX screens. So we mixed it in Dolby Atmos, which is exciting. It's the first time a Saw movie has been mixed in Dolby Atmos. So that is a huge thing. So I think when you see it and hear it big, it's such a different experience. I've watched it on my computer and I've watched it in a theater, and I'm telling you, they're two different movies there. So I'm excited that people are going to get to see it big and sound loud.
Well, another question just having to do with the delay, because it was something completely out of your hands. Did in the extra year, was the movie wrapped and ready to go when things shut down, or did you guys actually, was it a blessing in disguise?
No, we didn't touch it. I wrapped it on March 4th, I want to say, of 2020. Really? And what's insane is that we got on a flight, flew back to LA, and the world shut down like 2 weeks later.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think
since then.
I think it's going to be a big hit, and I think that a lot of people are going to really like it.